I'm one of the unlucky few that never actually got to go to the theater to see a Scream movie until recently. Yeah, I know. What am I doing? I'm reviewing movies and I can't even go see. You know what? That's not the point. My point is Scream 2022. My God, man. I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready for any of this. It's still a gut punch. I was going to do this review Saturday, but you know what? I had to just sit down, collect my thoughts, because I am still reeling from this strange meta thing that you are, Scream. And I don't know how to feel about it. One thing is certain, if you're watching this video, I know who did it, okay? I know who the killer is, and at the end of this video, you will too. So consider this your spoiler, your one and only spoiler warning for Scream 2022. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe to our channel for more videos like this in the future. I promise I'm not going to take as long next time getting these to you, so sit tight. The film opens as one would expect, with a phone call ringing throughout the house of a lone teenage girl. And for the first time in 11 years, we have a new face to the Scream franchise. We're introduced to Tara Carpenter, who just so happens to be alone when she receives a phone call from the villainous Ghostface. He then breaks into the house and attacks her. Tara fights back and is seriously wounded, but somehow she actually survives this. It's actually kind of impressive. After the opening credit sequence, we then get to see an out-of-town older sister of Tara, Sam Carpenter, who is then informed by her best friend Wesley Hicks about the attack. Sam then returns to Woodsboro with her boyfriend Richie, which I'm not gonna lie, why would you want to go back to Woodsboro? I mean, just put that shit in reverse and get out of there. Just leave. We then see a bedridden Tara, who is actually joined by a group of her high school friends. There's Mindy and Chad Meeks, who are actually the niece and nephew of the late Randy Meeks. We're also introduced to Wesley Hicks, the son of Judy Hicks, the officer from Scream 4, and his girlfriend Liv, who's, in my opinion, was just kind of a throwaway character in this whole series. And last but not least, we have Amber, Tara's best friend, who has a little bit of resentment towards Sam for, well, kind of abandoning her and her family long ago. But there's a reason to that, and I'll come back. Oh, and if you're confused about who all these people are, maybe this will help. In due time, Sam eventually arrives onto the scene to help protect her sister and find out who may be causing all these murders in the town of Woodsboro once again. That is before Sam takes a little bit of a medication break. We then soon find out that the reason for this medication is because Sam is a little bit unstable, and for some bizarre reason, she is seeing the fucking ghost of Billy Loomis. Yes, that's right, I said it. Billy comes back in full CGI form, talking to Sam in a very haunting manner, and we will return to that. Sam then sits down with her sister Tara to kind of explain why she's been gone for so long and why she's always felt sort of like a stranger in their house. We then receive the truth about Sam and why she's been so estranged over the last few years. It turns out she's actually none other than the daughter of Billy Loomis, having her mother actually keeping this a secret all throughout high school and keeping journals until one day Sam stumbled across these journals, revealing the truth of her father. Not being able to trust the police due to her shady family past, Sam then goes for the help of a legendary iconic character, Dewey Riley. Dewey's now living a reclusive life inside of a trailer park and seems to be split up from Gale. Lives his life a day at a time by sipping on coffee and watching the morning news. Starring none other than, well, you guessed it, Gale Weathers herself. Dewey refused to get involved, although he does pass on a little bit of horror movie knowledge by explaining the rules to Sam and Richie as they soon embark on a journey to find out who the killer is. Triggering some dark memories from Dewey's past, he then contacts Sidney Prescott and Gale Weathers, warning them both of the reoccurrence of Ghostface, and with one simple and clear message: do not return to Woodsboro. Dewey suddenly has a change of heart and decides to help Sam on her pursuit of Ghostface, as they all gather the teens at the home of Mindy and Chad Meeks. Then, in classic Scream fashion, Mindy breaks down the rules of surviving a horror film, as her uncle did long ago. This time, however, the teens come across the conclusion that the killer is not trying to make a sequel or a reboot, but more of a requel. Not quite a sequel, not quite a reboot, but somewhere in between, where no one is safe, not even legacy characters. It's at this point that Sam openly admits to her friends that she is actually the long-lost daughter of Billy Loomis. This causes a little bit more than just anxiety running rampant through the group, and it causes Sam to have a little bit of a panic attack, storming out of the house. It's at this point that Officer Judy Hicks then receives a phone call threatening the life of her son Wesley Hicks, who's at the time taking a shower. Judy then rushes home, only to be stopped in her tracks as she sees the sinister Ghostface himself standing on her porch. He rapidly charges at her, stabbing her in the chest and then bringing an end to Judy's story. Wes, who's fresh out of the shower, then heads downstairs to help prep the table for a dinner for two in a very sad scene. But the separation is then quickly cut short as Wes soon joins his mother by being stabbed in the neck. Dewey then arrives at the scene of the crime as he watches the bodies of Judy and Wes get carried away. Soon after, a news van shows up with none other than Gale Weathers. Gale steps out of the van, hoping to have a conversation with Dewey. Dewey, who is obviously infuriated that Gale has decided to even show up, asks her why she's back in town. Gale then reveals the petty reason for returning to Woodsboro, and it's that her producers thought she should cover it for obvious reasons. Gale and Dewey have a heart-to-heart talking about how things could have been differently had Dewey actually stayed in New York with her and worked things out. It's at this point that Sam becomes very concerned that nobody is at the hospital watching her sister. Dewey, Sam, and Richie then speed off to the hospital where they witness Ghostface chasing Tara around the halls. Of course, in heroic fashion, Dewey then unloads his revolver into the body of Ghostface, knocking him back into a glass casing. Dewey then demands that Sam get her sister to safety as quickly as possible, as he remembers the #1 rule in all horror movies: shoot him in the head. Dewey then returns to the location of Ghostface's body as he stands over the corpse, loading slowly a few rounds into his revolver before suddenly Dewey is then stabbed in the stomach and then once again in the back as Ghostface slowly lifts up on the knife. He looks at him in the face and says, "It's an honor." With one quick pull of the knife, Dewey then bleeds out on the floor as we lose one of horror's most iconic characters of all time. Tara is then transported to a different hospital as Sam comes face to face with none other than Sidney Prescott in the lobby. Sidney explains that she's in town because she wants to help. She's been through this time and time again and knows exactly what Sam is going through. Sam, Tara, and Richie then refuse Sidney's help and opt in for leaving Woodsboro completely instead of staying behind to get tied up in more of the mess. Sidney, having an uneasy feeling, then places a tracking device on the car of Sam. As Sam, Richie, and Tara then exit Woodsboro, suddenly, Tara starts having an asthma attack. The gang decide to make a pit stop at her best friend Amber's house to pick up an extra inhaler. They soon arrive at Amber's house where a party is ensuing. Richie quickly shuts the party down by flashing the lights and telling all the Zennials to head out of the door. Meanwhile, after having an argument with his girlfriend Liv, Chad Meeks then searches around the house for Liv, only to be attacked by Ghostface in classic fashion. He's stabbed multiple times and brought down to the ground, and then the camera just kind of cuts away from him. Meanwhile, Sidney and Gale, who's been tracking Sam this whole time across Woodsboro, make the shocking discovery that Sam, Richie, and Tara are walking into a trap. How do they know this? Well, as it turns out, the tracking device that Sid planted on Sam's car earlier in the movie has taken them to none other than Stu Macher's house. As Sidney and Gale speed to the rescue, Liv returns to the party asking where Chad is. Panic then quickly ensues as everybody starts pointing fingers at one another, before Amber quickly puts a hush to the crowd by shooting Liv directly in the head. Everyone then scatters throughout the house as Sidney and Gale arrive at the scene. Amber quickly greets Sidney and Gale at the front porch, faking an injury. However, Sidney and Gale don't buy it. Amber then quickly realizes her trap isn't going to work and decides to, well, shoot Gale. As Amber runs off into the house, Sidney quickly follows suit. Sidney quickly scopes out the house, going room to room, shooting each door before entering. Sidney's cautious actions then lead her to accidentally shoot Richie, who was actually hiding in the bathroom this whole time. Liv then quickly attacks Sidney from behind, knocking her off the staircase railing and down to the floor. Richie then makes his way down the staircase quickly as Sidney and Amber fight over the gun. Richie then picks up the knife that has fallen off of Amber during the fall and proceeds to stab Sidney in the stomach, revealing himself as the accomplice. Richie and Amber then reveal their motive that they are hardcore Stab fans and hate the directions that the new movies have been taking so far. The game plan here? Well, reboot the franchise while painting the daughter of Billy Loomis as the new villain. Sidney, Sam, and Gale are then dragged into the kitchen where it paints a scene very similar to that of the ending of the first Scream. As Richie goes to untie the bound Tara, he then comes to the realization that she's escaped and is loose in the house. Serving as a distraction, Sidney and Gale then attack Amber, knocking the gun away from her, as Gale fires multiple shots into Amber's body, knocking her onto the stove and setting her ablaze. This was honestly my favorite part of the movie. I mean, come on, let's get some justice for Dewey, right? While Sam and Tara quickly fight off Richie, he suddenly takes a stumble down the stairs. This mishap allows Sam just the perfect amount of time to remind Richie of a new rule in the horror franchise: don't fuck with the daughter of a serial killer. Sam then quickly jumps on top of Richie, stabbing him multiple times before finally slitting his throat. The film then comes to a conclusion as Sam approaches Sydney, asking her if she's ever going to be okay. Sydney then subtly replies with, "Eventually." Gail then turns to Sydney, telling her she has a new idea for a book, but not one about the new murderers, one that will honor Dewey. You know, I gotta be honest with everyone. This wasn't my favorite film in the Scream franchise. Is it better than 3? Yeah, by far. Better than 4? Not a chance in hell. So for that, I'm giving Scream a 7 out of 10. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more weekly content.